Getting ready for final practice for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series for tomorrow's Auto Club 500 in Fontana, California. Drivers are hopping in, strapped in, or in Mark Martin's case, out there first in line and ready to go.
I'm full and now I'm busy. What?
Wow. Welcome back to Fontana for final practice. Mike Joyler, Rick Reynolds, Darrell Waltrip, our friends next door.
Things that happen between practice shows.
Yeah, it's been an interesting morning. Let's put it to you that way. The best news we have is that the weather has held. We expected rain for a good part of today, and I guess that's not coming in until much later. So we're going to get not just first, but final round of practice also in and get ready to race.
Yeah, I think what you'll find in this session is you guys that are happy, they're not going to run very many laps. They'll go out and run a few laps, maybe get a fuel check and get a plug check, get a tire sheet, and cover it up. But guys that are still worried and got problems and not happy with their cars, they're going to have to run a bunch of laps here because this is it.
And you know what concerned me? Darrell and I were just outside. It's actually colder now than when that first practice session started. So these cars are going to have more grip. Engine going to make more power. So you've got to be careful because this kind of weather gives the track more grip. It'll solve a lot of handling issues that people have that may show up tomorrow when they drop the green flag.
All right, let's get late word on what's been going on the last 45 minutes since the last practice session. Let's go to the garage. Matt Yoakum.
Mike, this 2-mile oval is one of Jeff Gordon's most productive. 3 times he's gone to victory lane. Last year, he finished second in both races. Now, Steve Letarte told me they were pleased with the first practice session. Yes, he was 7th on the board, but their biggest hindrance, the first 5 laps of the run. They felt like they were giving up too much time, especially to their teammates, the 48 of Johnson and the 5 of Martin. The car just way too free. They're going to work on that during this session to Chris Devoda.
Well, Matt Kenseth is trying to get the front end of his car to turn better. And I talked to his new crew chief, Todd Parrott. Remember, first-time combination for those two here this weekend. Would you believe with all the wins that Todd Parrott has, he was nervous coming into Fontana. He's been dealing with Speedway cars only. He said he didn't know what he was doing, or at least that's how he felt yesterday. He said he feels a lot better today, and he hopes he feels even better tomorrow. Getting the front end to turn, that's what the 17 crew will be working on in this practice.
Thanks, Krista. That team is the defending champion of the Auto Club 500. In fact, Matt Kenseth won the Daytona 500 and this race to start the 2009 season. Here's our CC's Pizza Track description. Auto Club Speedway 2 miles around with a very moderate banking and a whole lot of straightaway.
And that's probably the most deceiving thing about this 2-mile racetrack is the banking in the corners, 14 degrees. That's right at the same banking that the tri-oval at Daytona has, not the corners. It's less than half the banking that Daytona has, and that's one reason these corners are such a challenge. You don't have that banking you drive off into.
And that 3,100-foot front straightaway, that's why we're seeing 205, 6, 7, 8 miles an hour off into turn 1. That's a long way from turn 4 down into turn 1.
53 degrees, about the same temperature it is in Charlotte this afternoon, but it's bright and sunny in North Carolina, and that is not the case here. Roger Penske built this track. He owned quite a number of speedways around the country and built it not to mirror, but to be very similar to Michigan International Speedway, another 2-mile D-shaped oval with that rounded front straightaway, which gives the drivers a little extra challenge. But I think more importantly, it gives every fan a better view of the whole racetrack as opposed to a track where the front straightaway is really straight and you're craning right and left to look over the people's heads alongside.
Yeah, the thing about this racetrack, people compare it to Michigan because they're both 2-mile racetrack. Totally different. The setup here, you can't run the same setup here you run at Michigan. At least back in the day you couldn't. And it's like comparing Daytona to Talladega. They're both 2.5-mile super speedways, but they're totally different.
You know, I heard a lot of fans bragging as we see Jamie McMurray, the first car on the racetrack for this practice session, our pole sitter. A lot of fans were telling me yesterday what they love about coming here is they actually elevated the back straightaway just a little bit, and the infield is down where even in a low row in the grandstands you can see almost the entire racetrack.
That is pretty neat. This was a former Kaiser Steel plant. And part of that plant is still located right behind
3985,
right behind the main grandstand. But this was what the EPA classified as a brownfield site. so that there were limited opportunities for what you could build on it when you reclaimed the site after the steel company was done with it. In fact, that big tower is all that remains of the steelmaking operation that took place here. So on a brownfield site, you can build things like golf courses and parks and recreation, and why not a racetrack to replace the Ontario Motor Speedway, which sat just a few miles to the west of us, right alongside I-10 here. The last scene of Terminator 2 was filmed here, we're told. Where? Over in the steel mill behind us? Okay. How about that?
Mark Martin has set the bar early in this practice session in this 5 car. He is the fastest, and right now the top 7 fastest speeds are by Chevrolet, a lot like what we saw in qualifying yesterday. The top 8 were Chevrolets, but we saw a lot of Fords up there in that first practice session this morning.
This is the practice session when you go out, and most likely you'll possibly even run your car out of gas. You just want to be sure that you pick all the fuel up out of the fuel cell, and the only way you can do that is to run her dry and see what's left in it.
Second fastest, Clint Boyer. Guess who's first?
Mark Martin.
Of course.
First out, first on the top of the sheet.
There you go.
But
Jimmy Johnson third quickest.
There's some hungry hounds right behind him. Clint Boyer's up there. Jimmy Johnson. There's McMurray.
Denny Hamlin is 8th.
You know, looking at Jimmy Johnson, the 48 car, one of the things we talked about yesterday in that practice session was starting the season off on a high note and bringing momentum here to Auto Club Speedway. Well, Jimmy Johnson's best finish in the last 4 Daytona 500s was 27th. That's since winning the 500 2006, and obviously, as we well know, I'm sure they would have loved to have had better runs, better finishes at Daytona, but it didn't hurt his championship efforts. There you see him right there. Finished 27th when he sat on the pole back in 2008, and coming here to Auto Club Speedway, he won his very first career win here back in 2002 as a rookie, and he's won the last 3 fall races here. Seeing a lot of bottoming out with that car.
Cars are really bouncing this time that we come here. I think it's just the guys have just gotten so much more aggressive with the shock package on these cars. We saw it at Daytona. We're seeing it here.
Mark Martin is quickest. Oh, there's a surprise. And pole sitter Jamie Mack is 4th. Speed's presentation of a Sprint Cup final practice from Auto Club Speedway is brought to you by the Sponsifier. Visit ToyotaRacing.com. Click on Design It, enter it. Six Chevrolets in the top 6 spots. Mark Martin, Clint Boyer, Jimmy Johnson, Jamie McMurray, Jeff Gordon, Jeff Burton. And Juan Montoya is 8th at the moment.
You know, something Darrell talked about a while ago is an agenda in this practice session. If I was pretty good in that first practice, I think what I would have probably looked at doing, and I bet a lot of them did, is 4 fresh tires, fill it up with fuel. A fuel run here is about 40 to 44 laps. If you can run 20 to 25 laps, that burns over half that fuel load off, really gets the tires heat soaked. I think that'll tell you a lot about what the characteristics of the car beginning and on into a run.
It looks like, looking at the practice sheet that we got from the first practice, 25 laps is a magic number. Most of the guys are at 25 laps, and that's what we'll probably see in this run.
Let's check with Matt.
And Mike, Larry Mack, you were right on cue with the 5 car of Mark Martin. I talked to Alan Gustafson right before they went out. He felt like they were in a good position with their package. They could race all day long tomorrow with what they learned in the first session. They changed a couple things fundamentally and to see if they could actually improve on it. And right now you can see Mark is down at the bottom, and that's what he told Alan about 2 laps ago. I'm going to go and run the bottom now and see what kind of feedback I get there. But they feel pretty confident with what they've got so far.
And you know, another thing that you can really experiment with in this practice session is air pressure. We talked in the first practice about the stagger, the differential between the size of the left and right side tire being a little less than normal. Well, you can drop the air pressure in those left side tires, and you can almost make the car think it's got more stagger, but there's a fine line on how low you can go with that and hurt the car at the beginning of a run because the air pressure is too low.
Let's take a second as we watch Greg Biffle to dispel a rumor that's been making the rounds since the Daytona 500, which was that the 500 was such a great race. See that big wing on the back of Biffle's car? What if we kept the wings on the cars for the restrictor plate races of Daytona and Talladega? And we talked to NASCAR senior officials this morning about that, and they said no, they are proceeding as planned with the changeover to the blade. The traditional stock car style rear spoiler will appear on these cars sometime this spring, once they get all of their wind tunnel data and all of the balance issues of that changeover sorted out. Whether there'll be more downforce or less, more drag or less, we don't yet know, but we do know NASCAR is moving ahead with their plan to replace the wing with a rear spoiler.
It's so typical. Everybody wanted to get rid of the wing.
Right.
That's the worst thing they've ever put on a stock car. As soon as they say they're going to get rid of it, oh, now wait a minute.
Wow, that was a great race.
Let's wait a minute.
Yeah.
But when you see this race car with the conventional spoiler on it, like we always ran, it changes the appearance of the car. Amazingly, I saw a picture of one of the cars with the spoiler on it with the wing off. It almost looked like a regular old race car.
Yeah, changes the look completely. You know, Chad Canals, crew chief for Jimmy Johnson, gave me a great, simple, quick explanation of this wing versus a spoiler. He said, Larry, the wing on the back of this car is nothing more than an airplane wing flipped upside down. And he said for a wing to work properly, you have to have consistent airflow above it and below it. He said that's the reason when you're on an airplane and they tell you to buckle your seat belts and you're in turbulence, that's what happens. The airflow is not consistent above and below the wing. And he said, and Brian Vickers almost confirmed this last night in a conversation Darrell and I had with him. He said what he liked about putting the spoiler on, he said it's not waving a wand. It's not going to make the cars faster, but he said it made the car more predictable and consistent, especially in turbulent air because of the way the airflow goes across his car back there to the wing, which will eventually be the rear spoiler area.
David Rudman, 22nd quickest. Kurt Busch, 17th fastest in this session. Let's check with Krista.
Well, Mike, right now Clint Boyer is second quick, but I heard you say the car's not turning as well as you'd like.
Yeah, it cooled off again too, so kind of fighting temperature changes in the racetrack, but just still a little too tight. We're going to, we just talked to the 31 team. They're a little bit different than we are. We're going to switch over and try their setup and see how we like it. But speed's there. We just need to turn a little bit better.
All right, thanks, Clinton. Mike, that's something the RCR cars have really been working on, is better communication as a whole throughout the organization, and that's what Clint just mentioned.
Well, I speak from experience from working there. That's one thing that has been a weak link there since Richard Childress went to multi-car teams. It's one reason they put Scott Miller, the crew chief from Jeff Burton last year, in that position.
Tomorrow, race day rolls into California to talk to Jamie Mack about the biggest win of his career and learn why Roush Fenway has dominated this 2-mile oval. Don't miss NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot, live tomorrow, noon Eastern, only on Speed.
Now, you know, back in the day, there was racetracks that Chevrolets had an advantage, and then a Ford would have an advantage. Atlanta comes to mind.
Right.
Ford's always ran great in Atlanta, and it's sort of a similar racetrack if you think about it. And then back in the day, we always said it was the power curve, you know, where the engines made peak power, that they really ran well, and Junebug just about peak powered her sideways there. But anyway, the engine combinations is what, you know, we always felt like was the key to one brand being better than the other, kind of way they made, how they made their most power.
But this has definitely been a good racetrack for Roush Fenway. I mentioned earlier he's won the last 5 spring races here with 3 different drivers. Now, a story that we followed closely last week at Daytona as we watched one of those Roush Fenway cars, David Reagan, the 6, the new Ford FR9 engine. It's just a new design of engine. It's a little bit lighter. It cools a little bit better. That lets the teams run more tape. But I was talking to this group yesterday from Roush Yates Engines, and right now the tentative plan, there will not be any Ford FR9 engines used probably until the Sprint All-Star race at Charlotte in May.
Yeah, they're just still going. There's some uncertainties about the engine. Every time they put a lot of miles on it, they just see things in it that they don't like yet, and they got to continue to improve upon. But just so you know, FR is for Ford Racing, and the 9 it came out in 09. So I had a lot of people ask me, what's an FR9?
Well, there's no magic to that.
It's not a secret code or anything.
into the garage area and
think.
into the garage stall shared with Brian Vickers. There goes Carl Edwards. It's not as dark as it looks right there.
You know, if it is a secret code, I bet our man Hammond can dig into it and find out.
Yeah. He has the secret decoder that he carries with him.
He's still working on WD-40. It'll be a while till he gets to FR9. WD is water displacement, and that was the 40th formula that they tried.
Perfect.
How do you know that?
Well,
I used enough of that stuff.
That is amazing.
he sprayed it on the doors of his MG40.
Yeah, there you go. We use a lot of that. That's right.
You are amazing, Mike Joey. I say that as the biggest compliment I could ever pay you.
Do you know that if you have a gasoline, like a lawnmower or something that won't start, if you'll take the plug out and spray some WD-40 in the, well, you can spray it in the carburetor, but you can spray it in the cylinder and it'll fire right up.
Oh.
It'll fire right up.
How big of a fire?
Hey, watch this.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. Oh, Martin Truex. Up there, the high, wide, and handsome line.
Yep.
He is 21st in this session.
He's working that high line. He's getting him a groove all worn in. He's ready to go.
While Bobby Labonte currently is 35th.
Run a total of 8 laps. All cars have practiced in this second practice here today, with the exception of Boris Said. We've been told that they will not practice. They had some troubles yesterday qualifying with an ignition switch. Do need to mention there were 46 cars here. The cars that did not qualify was Casey Mears in the 90, Johnny Sauter in the 35, and Terry Cook in the 46. Had to load up and go home after qualifying yesterday.
Brian Newman climbs out after a practice run. 13th fastest for the Rocket. Kevin Conway takes over the 37 and will drive it most of the season in search of Rookie of the Year.
And he was not actually approved to run the race at Daytona last week, so this will be his first career Sprint Cup Series start.
Mark Martin, Clint Boyer, Jimmy Johnson, our quickest so far. Welcome back. The Now Network, NASCAR on the Now Network, brings you the fastest 10-lap average of this practice session. And it is Jimmy Johnson.
Let me get. Oh, it's Jimmy. That's what I was going to guess.
You know, Jimmy has 14 starts here, and along with those 4 wins, he has completed every lap of competition. And he looks like he's doing a little practice in the pit stops here, getting acclimated.
I think he was just trying to see what the grip level was. You know, based on problems everybody had in the pits last week, sliding through their pit boxes, couldn't get going. I'd say that's a good little move right there.
Let's check with Krista on our pole sitter.
Yeah, calling him, I guess, the golden boy out here in California. It can do no wrong so far. And right now, Jamie McMurray talking about running the high line on his first run. He was really comparing his run to that of his teammate, Juan Pablo Montoya. The crew telling him Montoya's entry was a little bit higher on the track. McMurray's crew made a spring adjustment, the left front spring, and Jamie told him the tire pressure felt a lot better on that run.
Well, we talked about
quickest.
Air pressure being a big factor.
And here's his teammate.
Gotcha.
I tell you, Montoya, he's having fun right now, and I'm sure a lot has to do with he's running well.
Doesn't have those sunglasses on today. I wonder where they are.
Did Krista ever give them back to him?
Krista, see if you can find them.
Haven't seen much of the sun today.
You know, Darrell, so much was said. You just touched on it. I want to expand on it a little bit about the pit situation last week. And Pat Trison, I talked to him on Wednesday night, and he contributed to a lot of things. One, what you said, a very dirty pit area, just, you know, a lot of oil, a lot of greases. And he did say he felt like smaller brake packages that people were running contributed to it. But here's the other thing he said that he felt had a lot to do with it: a fairly hard tire, no grip when you went to stop.
Yeah, you see the right front tire locked up on every car as they were coming in there, and it didn't matter how fast they were going, that right front was sliding.
And I think those were asphalt pits. And of course, here we have concrete. We have an asphalt pit road, but concrete pit stalls.
These pit stalls here are huge, and here's the thing: you don't have much issue here.
These stalls look, I know Dick Berggren has the measurements, but they look almost twice as long as some of the short track pits that we see.
Another thing I'll say about concrete is you really gotta get the RPM up when they drop the jack, because you don't want to. You can break an axle or bust a rear end gear here on these concrete pads.
You know, one of the rule changes that NASCAR made headed into 2010. This is the commitment cone line right there. Now, if you notice, it's well beyond where the grass starts. This was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in the fall race, because we were in the middle of green flag pit stops. The 48, the 24, the 26, they were already down in this area here. Obviously, the caution came out, so they were not to the lights yet, so the lights turned red, so they were penalized, and there was no way around getting back on the racetrack safely. So it's what NASCAR has done. Now the rule is where before, if you pitted too soon, no matter what the circumstance, the penalty under caution, tail into the longest line. Now, if you just come down pit road, maintain pit road speed, 55 miles per hour here, do not stop in your pits. You can go on down pit road and blend right back in. And this was one of the racetracks that really needed that rule, along with a lot of others. It's bit a lot of people a lot of places.
Watching Jeff Burton, who is 6th fastest in this session. Here's Krista.
Brian Vickers on his last run told his crew the car is the best it's been by far, but added still a little bit tight in the center and off the turns. As he went back out there, the crew told him, go ahead and add a little bit more rear brake to his race car. Brian Vickers right now 7th quick on the board.
Would you ever believe you'd be adjusting brake bias at a 2-mile racetrack, Darrell?
Well, not more to the rear. I mean, just think about it. I mean, if you got too much rear brake, you're going to, first thing's going to happen, you get on the brakes, you lock the rear tires up to spin out. So I always had to have my bias a little more to the front, just for that one reason alone.
David Rudiman, 22nd quickest here.
Kind of a crutch, really, when you got to do it with the brakes.
Tomorrow, NASCAR on Fox brings you Sprint Cup Series racing as Matt Kenseth tries to defend his victory in the Auto Club 500. Presented on Fox by Napa Auto Parts. 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific in high definition, and only on Fox. Michael McDowell, one of the 2 Prism Motorsport entries for Phil Parsons and Randy Humphrey. Dave Blaney, 32nd in this session. McDowell is 39th.
I tell you, he picked up big time when it came time to go qualify and got that car in the show. I think he picked up like 5 or 6 tenths.
He did, Darrell. If he'd been one and done, he would have gone home.
Yeah.
The second lap did it. Same
This is
for
another one.
Yeah.
Same for Eric Almirola. They were going to have to load up and go home. I was talking to their truck driver this morning. He said after he completed the first lap, he said, I went ahead and started lowering the tailgate. But he picked it back up on lap 2.
Yeah, he got real bad sideways on his first lap and was able to recover very nicely.
They have not practiced much. 5 laps in this session, about the same in the first.
I would say they're going to have to get something on those quarter panels in the form of lettering.
Most of those guys have told me that if you see a sponsor on the quarter panel, we're going to race. If you don't, we're not going to be out there very long.
But like we talked yesterday, they're supplying jobs for people that would be unemployed.
It's all a matter of economics. And I think with regard to the start and park teams, and as Darrell points out, they're only start and park when they don't have sponsors. And the only time you might give that a second thought is when somebody fails to make the race that had planned to run all day and had a sponsor on the car. But everybody has that same opportunity to run as fast as they can and get their car in the show. It's a matter of who makes the most of it and proceed from there.
And you know, honestly, the way this schedule is, I know there's people that question back-to-back West Coast races. It's pretty economical for teams that have very limited budget, because I even know a lot of the major teams that will leave here on Sunday night, Monday morning, go over to Las Vegas. Booty Barker told me, I think for the 13 car, they've got a place in the hotel parking lot. They're going to change engines and swap stuff around like we used to do.
That's old school.
Saw a lot of guys went home from Daytona because those were their Daytona cars and loaded up their inventory for the 2 races out here. How does Martin look? Let's see. I know he's been riding up there. I'm sure Michael has been on him about, you got to get this thing up, run the high groove, because he's been up there ever since practice started earlier today, riding around on the top side, and they're not running all that badly.
But you know, Darrell, if you think back over the last couple of years, even with Martin driving the 1 car, he normally would run the high line. You know, nothing to the degree that we would see Michael or Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Montoya. But Truex has been one that he's been known to run the high line at some of these 1.5 2-mile racetracks.
He's sitting there 21st quick, not blazingly fast, but he does look very comfortable to me. It's like the car's driving okay for him, just doesn't have speed in it. Here's Dale Jr. and I like the way Dale Jr. gets. I like the way he slides that right hand over on top of that, over to the left side of the steering wheel, puts it back over here down the straightaway on the spoke. But when he gets to the corner, he slides it over there. Gets a little tug on it right here. That car looks pretty neutral, really. He's not cranking it too far. Like what I'm seeing there, Larry. Car looks good.
And I think we even said it at Daytona. It was great for those guys to finish second, get that momentum. But the measuring stick for where you're at will be here, Las Vegas, Atlanta, those 2 short tracks. Once we leave race 5 or 6, the picture becomes a little clearer who the real players are going to be.
Greg Biffle comes in after a practice run. We'll check with Krista.
Well, just a quick update on the 16. You know, this final practice is when all the crews are thrashing. They're on a timeline trying to get their checklist in. Biffle his crew just told him we're about 10 minutes ahead of everybody else.
15th in this session.
That's an interesting analogy. Or 10 minutes ahead of everybody else on their changes, or
I'm not sure what to read into that.
Are they going to quit 10 minutes early, or?
Well, they might.
I'm sure the engine guy would love that.
Yeah.
If they've accomplished what they need to. And
yeah, I'm sure that's what. I guess they got their work. Everything they wanted to do, they got done, and they still got 10 minutes to play with.
There is Wyatt. Born Monday. 7 pound 6 to Elliott and Amanda Sadler. Congratulations.
Elliott is 14th quickest. He's run a total of 15, now 16 laps. And, you know, this has been one of the better tracks for Elliott. In fact, that's where he got his very last win, but it was 192 races ago in the fall of 2004.
Steve Addington debriefing there with Kurt Busch.
Mark Martin, Clint Boyer, and Jimmy Johnson continue to pace this final practice. Final practice for tomorrow's Auto Club 500. Here's the best 10-lap average right now. We're looking at Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer at the top of that list.
When I look, there's Rudiman. He's 4th, and his average is 4th best. And I don't reckon we've probably seen him on. I don't even know when he was on the racetrack. He just kind of goes out there, does his thing, keeps his nose clean. He's always right up the top of the sheet.
You know, we were talking at break about this team and Tony Stewart in his 14 car. He qualified yesterday 16th, but we've watched him these 2 practice sessions today, and they are searching. I mean, right now he's 27th quickest. He's run a total of 18 laps. And just totally shocked how they performed in the Daytona 500. There's his crew chief, Darian Grubb. And you just wonder, last year, like we were talking, you know, they were just getting to the racetrack with this brand new operation. Now they've got a year under their belt, and there's something, they're off a little bit right now, it looks like.
Yeah, at Daytona, I mean, they were coming in and jacking the thing up and putting pans on the front of it, doing a lot of work to the car, trying to find something that would make it work. Sometimes, you know, Larry, drivers have sophomore jinx, and, you know, sometimes it can happen to a race team.
You know, going back to Tony Stewart, there's Tony Gibson, Ryan Newman's crew chief. Of our 22 tracks on the circuit, the only 3 tracks that Tony's not won a Cup event at is here, Las Vegas, and Darlington. But he's actually won a nationwide race here in Darlington. So the only track on the circuit he's not been to victory lane would be where we go next week at Las Vegas.
I think everybody but one driver has been out in this session.
Boris said.
Boris.
Yeah, and again, we talked about they had elected not to run this practice session.
Jeff Gordon, 5th on the board. He's run 14 laps. David Reagan and David Rudiman have run the most laps at 28.
And this is a team that can benefit. They were off. They can benefit so much from their teammates, you know, find out what Mark's doing, what Junior's doing, and they can gain so much in what Jimmy's doing, throw something at it, and probably find something that Jeff likes to get him up here in the top 5 on the speed chart.
Here's Matt.
And Mike, the biggest issue for Jeff Gordon this practice session, now remember in the first session they felt like they were pretty decent, but now he says the car is just pushing. And then when he goes to get back in the throttle, it just snaps loose. They made a shock change the previous time, and he's working his 15th lap during this session.
Well, and I think what you got to do is work on first things first. You're going to have to get that push out, and you may actually calm that looseness down once you get the front tires biting.
And the most aggravating thing for a driver is a car that's, you turn the wheel, you're in the gas, turn the wheel, it's going, and snaps around on you. That is so unpredictable. You know, you just got a handful of wheel, you think it's going to go through the corner like you want it to. All of a sudden the front bites a little bit and the back jumps out. You can't drive a car. You can't race a car like that.
There you see the best laps on the Penske cars, very consistent, but they are 16th and 17th and 30th overall.
Sam Hornish was by far the better of the Penske cars in qualifying, got him a top 10 effort. He'll start this race tomorrow in 8th position.
I think it might take Brad a little bit of time, Brad Keselowski in his 12th car. It might take him a little bit of time to transition into this, into these Cup cars. I think we know he can. We know he has the ability. I think it just take a little bit of time to get that whole thing gelling for him.
And you know, he ran a very limited Sprint Cup Series schedule last year. As we all know, he won the race at Talladega and had a great run driving a Hendrick car at Darlington back in the spring. But the 5 or 6 races he actually ran this 12 car at the end of last year, there was not a lot to talk about. You know, they've made some changes over there. Jay Guy is now his crew chief, but still not where they want to be, I'm sure.
I don't think so.
Wednesday, Speed takes you for a ride with the American soldiers who move the Army's gear along Iraq's bomb-laden highways. An all-new Dangerous Drives Iraq Convoy, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern on Speed.
You know, as I look at turns 1 and 2, very difficult to get through this corner here. When you run down at the bottom down here, you kind of miss. See all these cracks that have been filled with like sealer. When you come through this corner, the reason guys like to run up high up here is they miss all that. They go around it. That's why they like that high line. But when you come right through the middle of that right there, that's when the car wants to push or snap loose. A lot of gunk right in there that you run over.
You know what that shot told me or showed me, Darrell? I think that documents that what little bit of banking this racetrack has. That's looking straight back into the corner. I mean, that's not much banking for as fast as you run around this racetrack.
And that sealer pretty much runs along the seams between the courses of asphalt that I'm sure all of you are tired of hearing about after last Sunday. However, there's just not a paving machine that can pave the entire width of a speedway in one pass.
Yeah, and as we just saw that shot there, they don't look very wide from a camera angle.
Right.
But those patches or those the sealer in those grooves like that is pretty wide.
Casey Kane out for another run. Krista?
Well, Mike, Casey Kane said right now his car is decent across the bottom in 1 and 2. It's loose in and loose off, but he likes it there. But 3 and 4, he said he's a little too tight in the center and loose off.
We've seen him loose off a couple times. We saw him, remember, he's coming off 4, and he got the thing sideways, started juking with him. That's where we saw how quick his hands were.
He's run a total of 21 laps. The most laps anyone's run so far is David Reagan, and the 6 cars run 31 laps.
Mark Martin climbing aboard for another little ride here.
He's run 20 laps in this session.
Hops in that car like a kid.
Sam Hornish has run 25 laps. 2-time IndyCar winner here.
You can see those cars. You just see the nose pop up and down. That back straightaway has got some dips in it.
And with the speed you're running here, Sam just kind of on a 4-wheel slide through the corner. But, you know, teams are going to try to push the envelope with the shock package. You know, they're going to try to keep that car pulled down in the ground because that certainly helps the speed of the car.
Yeah, that maybe just got a little sideways loose with him right there. He was able to catch it. That looked like a car that had too much rear brake in it, to me.
And he did have those left side wheels just below that white line, and that's a little bit of a banking difference down there on the apron.
He's dancing right there.
And he's starting where tomorrow?
8th.
Quite near the front. Where's his buddy at, Jimmy Johnson? They're not anywhere near together, are they?
No, Jimmy's 7th.
He's
right next to him.
Next door neighbors to start with.
They have a history together.
I'd say they might have a meeting before they drop the green flag.
Jeff Burton 6th quickest in this practice.
Oh, Burton's running good, guys. Qualified pretty good. 14th, I think, and
yes.
Pretty good shape here with his car. And I know he will race good. He's always got a good race package.
He's run a total of 26 laps. You see David Reagan there in the 6 car. I talked about him, the most laps of anyone so far, 34 laps.
Reagan started his career in Legends cars, raced with Reed Sorensen and Joey Logano in Legends. And I understand he is one of the first entries for the $250,000 to win Legends car race that they're going to run at Charlotte Motor Speedway this summer. Now what this is a tooth. Somebody's wearing Juan's glasses.
No, he's not wearing. He's just letting him hold them. He better not. He better not give him those glasses.
Maybe he'll bring you a pair. He's going to be our guest on Trackside next Friday night, along with Danica Patrick.
Yeah, I'll wear those.
In fact, there's a great one not far from here. Irwindale Speedway.
Yes, sir.
Home of the Toyota All-Star Showdown.
Like that little racetrack.
And probably the nicest short track in America. If you're coming out here to Auto Club Speedway, you got to go to the races Saturday night at Irwindale.
That was one of the first tracks to actually do the progressive banking, to my knowledge, wasn't it?
Out here, I believe so, Larry. We had Riverside Park in Massachusetts, which is no longer there. I had it, and there's one down south that escapes me that had an asphalt track with a progressive bank.
Does Lanier have progressive bank?
It may. I'm sorry, Darrell. It's just not coming.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, one thing I like about Irwindale, every time I watch a race there, they can run 4 wide on a half-mile racetrack, and everybody's got room.
Yeah.
And everybody can come off the corner side by side, 4 wide, and get and make it.
Now we won't say they don't get together, but it's definitely it'll take it.
What I like about that joint is you can do a slide job on the guy. So cool, man. Ask Joey Logano.
Here's Krista.
Well, how's this for being descriptive? Carl Edwards on his last run told his crew it turns in neutral. At the 1/3 mark, it gets a tick free, then a hair free center. On throttle, it's a 2 loose and a 4 loose off. After he came back in, he said, okay, a little bit different. Instead of a 2 on the gas, it's now a 5.
The only thing I do like about that whole description, regardless, it's doing one thing. It's free to loose. It's not doing the push and then loose like we heard, I think, Jeff Gordon describing about his car earlier.
But That's good information. I mean, that's
great information.
That's a whole lot better than just screaming, "It's loose, I can't drive it." You know, well, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Regan Smith, 31st in this practice. Ryan Newman out there, Max Pappas.
Looks like the drop off on the tires, Larry, is about a second.
Max Pappas, excuse me, Darrell. You're right, but got a congratulatory call after making the Daytona 500 last week from Lance Armstrong.
Really?
It's pretty cool.
That is cool. Very cool. But yeah, you're right, and you know, that's a good thing. We were talking about that at a meeting this morning. Whenever a tire has give up, the car starts sliding around, the speed slow down a little bit. You'll never know it watching them. But these guys feel like they can race side by side, and the great thing about it, you won't see someone just stay out for track position and not come to pit road like we saw a few years ago at a lot of racetracks.
Plus, it saves that old engine. Because when the tires give up a little bit, you can't just drive it in there hard to go, jump right back in the throttle. You lay out of the throttle, let the car get a little grip, and then you go.
Bicycling is one of Max Pappas's hobbies.
So that's why I was.
And Lance Armstrong is one of his heroes. And apparently Lance found out about that, gave him a call. Cool. See that steering wheel Carl Edwards has? That is new, Darrell. And, you know, it's got that kind of a suede or Alcantara type of covering. Momo makes that wheel, and they make steering wheels for racing sports cars, and have Jean-Pierre Moretti's company has for many, many years.
Several.
I understand that's new for Carl this year.
Several, you can see Momo there on the steering wheel right down here. Several guys have tried different configurations. You know, Robbie Gordon had a steering wheel that almost looked like an Indy car, kind of oblong looking thing. And some have tried small wheels, but for the most part, the guys have stuck to the standard size. That looks very similar to what Carl's.
That's Mark Martin. There's Casey Kane. That's kind of your standard wheel
right there.
Right there with Kyle Busch.
Yeah. Just rubber coated.
And the same type of wheel for Joey Logano, with the big molded rubber pad there on the end of the steering column, and the sweet quick disconnect. And Denny Hamlin also has a Momo wheel. Interesting how these things evolve. A lot of the IndyCar drivers, Formula Car drivers, have gone to a steering wheel with molded hand grips.
Yeah.
But that's because they rarely move their hands on the wheel, rarely turn that wheel more than a quarter of a turn, and their hand stays in the same position all the time. So that really wouldn't lend itself to stock car racing.
Jeff Gordon tried that. I know Jeff had a wheel that had the molded grips in it, but for that very reason, look, it just was hard to drive a car when you got to move your hands around as much as we do, and you only have that one position.
I think that little old car right there is going to be pretty tough tomorrow. Clint Boyer in that 33.
Speed's presentation of Sprint Cup final practice from Auto Club Speedway is brought to you by the Sponsifier. Visit ToyotaRacing.com, click on Design It, enter it. My son Scott tried that. He had a ball designing his version of Joey Logano's car. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a lot of fun. Be interesting to see what they have for the All-Star race.
Let's listen to Carl Edwards before he came down pit road.
You know, four split, so we go from being about a 1 tag right now to a 3 maybe, instead of a 0 to a 4 or a 5.
Whoa. Whoa, man, he about spun that thing out right there, Larry.
Yeah, and that's coming on the pit road.
I think that's, again, it's just my opinion, but I think that's a little too much rear brake. try to get it on pit road real hot and heavy and get on those brakes and lock the rear tires up a little bit.
But I like his system of telling Bob Osborne, you know, a 4 to a 2 or a 5 to a 1. I mean, I think that really spells it out just how loose or how tight the car is.
There's the cat in the hat. We saw Jack Roush.
I guarantee you one thing.
After dinner last night, he's looking it over.
He knows quack.
Jack?
Yeah, Jack does.
Jack knows quack.
And Jack does know quack.
There's the number 2 heading into the garage, whose car owner, Roger Penske, turns 73 today. Matt?
And Mike, it's definitely been a work in progress for the entire 2 team. They've struggled pretty much this entire practice session. Wholesale changes throughout this session. Kurt's comment pretty much echoes the entire practices. I still feel like we are just absolutely all over the place. Coming back in now.
Yeah, they've been missing a little something with this 2 car. You know, he hit the wall about 6, 7, 8 minutes into that first practice yesterday. He ended up getting a pretty decent qualifying run in. He's going to start 12th, but they've been really searching with this car. We're down less than 10 minutes to go in this final practice now.
Now, you see that guy that's still in the back of the car right there, just coming out. What he's doing is he's measuring shock travel. We got a little, we'll put a little rubber bushing on the shocks, on the shaft of the shocks. And a lot of crew chiefs, particularly old school crew chiefs, want to know how much you push those all the way down to the shock, so when the car goes out, as it travels, you'll see how far up the shaft that rubber bushing goes, and it'll give you an idea how much the rear of the car is moving up and down.
Quickest Toyota in this practice is Brian Vickers. He's 7th overall, with Denny Hamlin 9th and Scott Speed 10th. Kyle Busch 12th.
And you've got to believe that this team was anxiously anticipating this new season. When you look at the fact of how they ran for most of the year last year, won the race at Michigan, made the chase, and then absolutely the wheel just completely ran off in the chase. But I mean, Ryan Pemberton, the crew chief, Brian Vickers, I tell you, we probably used it all up just trying to get in the chase, and they never could find it during those 10 races.
And I heard some people talking about that. How do you use, you know, what happened? How do you use it all up? Chad Canal said back the first year that he and Jimmy were together, that he burnt his people out and used all of his good equipment up and had nothing when the chase started. And he said that's one thing he learned, that he saves, he gets everybody rested up, he gets everything in organized, all set up for the chase.
Scott Speed will start 13th tomorrow. Had a great qualifying run yesterday.
Had a great run at Daytona, led that race late in it. Tony Stewart having a little fun.
That's an old short track driver, dirt track. Always looking at those tires.
He looks at them differently these days. He's buying them.
Yeah. How many of these have we used?
Getting close to the finish of this session, and what's different about this from the first one? Clint Boyer and Jamie Mack, 2nd and 4th. Both were well down the list. Boyer was 9th in the first practice, and McMurray in the opening practice today was 28th. And now he has the 4th fastest lap in this final practice.
Crew chief, what's up?
Well, I think what they're doing, they know that we've got about 2.5 minutes left in this practice session, and they're going to make an adjustment on this race car on pit road where they can get back out there, because if you took the time to go into the garage area, get in there, pull in, back out. So they've made a quick adjustments on this 82 car, which is not a bad move.
Kind of, I don't know if they'd be adjusting the shock, the clicker on the shock, but they had big wrenches, like they would be adjusting toe or
camber or toe
maybe, or jacking a little load in the sway bar.
I would say that might be what they were doing.
Kind of looked like loading the bar a little bit, which is okay. I used to do that a lot.
Yeah, normally you wouldn't change suspension settings without the gauges.
No, that's right. So I'd say they were jacking a little, putting a little tension on the sway bar.
Matt Kenseth has run a total of 35 laps in this 17 car. He is 11th quickest.
And he is the fastest Ford. Elliott Sadler is 14th, Greg Biffle 15th, Paul Menard 21st. And there is your 3rd fastest Toyota. His teammate Brian Vickers is quickest. But the top of the sheet is all Chevrolet. First 6 spots, all Chevys, including this one, Jeff Burton, who is 6th.
But as we looked at Scott Speed, I mean, he's sitting here 10th quick in this practice session. Qualified, what, 13th?
Right.
Pretty fast race car.
Matt?
And Mike, an update on the 11 of Denny Hamlin. He says the last change just made the race car too tight everywhere, but especially on entry. And then when he tried to cut in the center of the corner, it just pushed terribly. They're pretty much done. They feel like they're at their mileage limit for the motor.
Thanks, Matt. Now 30 seconds left in this session. We talked about Eric Darnell, who's going to stand by for Carl Edwards, but it doesn't look as if Eric practiced that car at all, as far as we know.
Yeah, and I just don't believe, I just don't see Carl Edwards leaving California. You know, he told us last week that only if there was a problem would he actually leave the racetrack. And you know, I know we've got 3 Hendrick cars. You see the red and the black flag waving mean in practice is over. We've got 3 Hendrick cars in the top 5, but the guys that I like, Richard Childress Racing has never won a race here. Those Childress cars are looking awfully good.
I like my guys from last week, McMurray and Montoya.
Is this where Montoya gets his first oval track win?
I like Montoya. He's right near the top of the chart in the 5 consecutive and 10 consecutive laps. What a breakthrough for the sport that would be. Well, you'll all have to find out when you tune in tomorrow on Fox for coverage of the Auto Club 500. NASCAR Live with John Roberts comes across right after this break. And we'll see you tomorrow on Fox.